So it's been many years since the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3 have been out respectively. So I kind of wanted to hit on essentially how they're kind of holding up in 2023. And although I wouldn't necessarily recommend buying the PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4 anymore if you can afford the PlayStation 5, these are still decent consoles, and it's actually quite insane how big of a jump the PS3 was to the PS4, and honestly how some of these games are still holding up on a console like the PlayStation 3, because, I'm going to be honest, there is still some overlap between these two consoles, which is actually pretty insane. Now, like I said, you are much better off buying something like a PS5 as of this point, and I would say also the PlayStation 3, it's kind of already been outdated for like a long time. There's no online capability on this one anymore. You could probably still connect to the internet and stuff, but you can't really play online games, which is probably a big advantage that a lot of people want to do. So just a few things to keep in mind. Now on the exterior, there were kind of actually around the same type of models that the PlayStation 3 kind of came on for the PlayStation 4. So the original model I would say was probably more, I guess, a bigger deal on the PlayStation 3. That was a beefy console. It was massive. It was a very iconic design, but that one had a big feature, which was backwards compatibility on like all of the previous consoles before. But Sony did a very weird thing. After the original PlayStation 3 with the Slim and the Super Slim, they went ahead and removed basically all the backwards compatibility of the other consoles. So that was a very weird thing that happened there. I don't even know why they did that. With the PlayStation 4, Sony kind of kept the same type of layout, the same type of design, and the same exact type of interface and everything across the board for their, each iteration of the PlayStation 4. But they didn't just keep making a skinnier and slimmer console. They actually went through and made a console that was more powerful. And that was something that was really awesome. They really didn't have to do that. And the fact that they did give us that type of capability was super cool. And I was a humongous fan of that during that time. So I think that in and of itself was a really cool thing that Sony did. And of course, a console like the PlayStation 4 Pro is going to hold up more so and better than the console like the PlayStation 3 Super Slim that came out at the very end. That was like a cheaper iteration of the console, to be honest. Now, between that, those are pretty much the main things. Of course, there's differences in terms of the hardware and the features. Of course, you're getting USB ports, you're getting a disc tray on all the models of all these consoles. And, it's a pretty basic, it's a design that we're familiar with. But at that time, I remember a lot of people were freaking out about it because they were both very good design consoles. But I think the PlayStation 3 was a little bit more of like a unique design. I think it was a little bit more like iconic in a way than the PlayStation 4. Now, with the controllers, they were also, there was also a lot of overlap here, but you have to remember that the PS4 controller did have that like touchpad thing at the very front. I totally forget that this thing even has that touchpad thing at the front. I just have gotten so used to not using it. And I definitely don't think it was a gimmick. I think there were some games that actually used it appropriately, but for the most part, I've never used it, I don't think, at all. And I don't really even have played any games that support it either. So it's one of those things that came and went, but it's still cool that these consoles, that the PlayStation 4 had it. The PS3, controller, I liked it a lot because it did have that motion control inside of it, and it did have Bluetooth capability, it was an older version of Bluetooth, but the PS4 controller was also very nice, and there was definitely a lot of overlap here too. Now, one of the bigger problems I would say with the PlayStation 4 was pretty much the backwards compatibility. Although the PS3, the original one, could actually do PS2 and PS1 games, you couldn't actually play any, PlayStation 3 games on the PlayStation 4 unless it was via, their actual like PlayStation Network digital method. You could not play your physical, PS3 games onto your PS4, which kind of was an annoying thing for a lot of people. But beyond that, there was still a lot of overlap with these games. There was lots and lots of games that actually had came out for the PlayStation 3 that had already kind of been out for the PlayStation 4 as well. So that was also a big thing. There was also some re-releases of certain games that came out as well. So that was kind of a big thing. And, at the end of the day, you're still getting a console on the PlayStation 4 that is still actually kind of, relevant. And this is kind of what I'd say to kind of wrap up this comparison. I think when it comes down to these two consoles, the PlayStation 4 is still a console that you can still buy and still use and kind of still have somewhat of a future ahead of it. There's probably going to be more games and more updates that are going to be coming out for the PlayStation 4. And I think that's a really big deal. When you're getting a device like a PlayStation 4, it still kind of has a little bit of a future ahead of it. With the PlayStation 3, I think this specific device is pretty much, like I mentioned before, it's on its last leg. It's not going to be lasting that much longer, and it's already not lasting longer. It's already been outdated for like a decade now. But that's kind of what happens when you're getting a console like this. Again, what more could you ask for? The good thing about the PlayStation 3 is that they're very cheap. They don't have like lots and lots of, big issues anymore. Well, there's still issues, but it's not as crazy as it used to be. And I would definitely say that's a kind of an advantage for something like the PlayStation 4. But as I mentioned before, you were probably better off buying something like a PlayStation 4. That's going to definitely give you a much better experience than the PlayStation 3 will. So that pretty much covers that up. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.